Brad Brownell. Before we hand it over to Coach, we'll give you a couple of notes. Tigers' 21-point win yesterday was the second largest in program history in the NCAA tournament. They also had their best three-point percentage defense performance in a tournament game, holding New Mexico to 13% from beyond the arc. We will let Coach Brownell start us with an opening statement before we turn it over to questions. Coach?
Yeah, just happy to be here. Really proud of our team and the way we played yesterday. Beat a very good, well-coached New Mexico team. Certainly have our hands full with Baylor. Scott's done an unbelievable job down there, and this team, like a lot of his teams, super offensively, just incredible three-point shooting, great spacing in their offensive package, run a lot of different types of action, a little bit of false motion into, misdirection, baseline runner action, and pick and roll stuff in the middle of the floor, and then obviously he likes to change defenses. So, they've had a lot of success, been very successful in this tournament, obviously winning a national championship. But we're excited about the challenge and looking forward to tomorrow.
So in the room, if you'll raise your hand, we'll get you a mic, and you can start with your affiliation. If you are joining via the Zoom, you can use the raise hand function to get in for a question, and we'll work those in as well. But starting in the room with Teresa.
Teresa Walker, the Associated Press. Coming off of the defensive performance last night against the Lobos, I think it was the Lobos, does that help when you're getting ready to play a team like Baylor that shoot 16 threes yesterday?
Yeah, I hope so, but I don't know if there's a lot of correlation because the offenses are different, the players are different. Certainly there's middle pick and roll from both teams, so there's some things there that maybe we can use, but at the end of the day, I'm just happy that our team played well and we have some positive results to go back to. I think that's what's important as anything. And, again, we'll have to do it. You got to duplicate it against a really talented team that's a little more dynamic from the three-point line. They certainly shoot the ball better than New Mexico did.
Same side on the back row.
Justin Williams from The Athletic. Coach, the game's all about spacing and shooting now. We've seen a couple teams, though, have some success with post play, NC State, Purdue, obviously you guys. What do you think about that? Is there something to that? Is that a correction, or is that just something specific to you guys?
I think it's about your personnel, right? PJ Hall for us is a first-team all-conference guy and super talented, and the schools you mentioned have similar players who are all-conference players. I think it's coaches trying to utilize their players in the best way they can. Ian Shefflin's development for us sort of helped us move to this a little bit because we felt like we had two guys now that are good enough to score around the basket, make some threes. So we kind of run a little more old school, high-low with our post players kind of moving up and down at times. We did a little bit of that last year, but we certainly have done more of it this year. And, again, a lot of it is because of the development of really both Ian and R.J. Godfrey to supplement PJ.
We'll go to the Zoom. Darian, if you want to unmute, go ahead. All right, we'll try that again with, we'll go to Dan in the Zoom. Dan, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Dan Tortora, wakeupcalldt.com. Coach, representing the ACC, just what you could say about what that means to you, not just Clemson, but the conference as a whole, as we haven't seen as many spots in the NCAA tournament the last couple of years, but we've seen the success with the teams that have gotten in.
Yeah, certainly trying to represent Clemson first, but the ACC as well. Unbelievable basketball history, probably known a little bit as a basketball league. I think there's been a misnomer, if you will, that the league maybe hasn't been quite as strong. I've said that, Pittsburgh and Wake Forest from our league are both tournament worthy and easily could make Sweet 16s and advance. And I'm not surprised at all that our league has done well. I'd be more surprised if we didn't. I just think there's really good players in our league and good coaching, and certainly we're a proud representative right now and trying to do our best to continue to push the ACC forward.
We'll try again to see. We'll bring in Darian, and you can try your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you.
Got you. Okay. You mentioned how Baylor likes to use a lot of misdirections, open up their shooting on offense. How much would the mental side of the game be important compared to the physical side for this matchup?
Yeah, I think that's a big change, right? Because there's such a quick turnaround. You know, we had several days to practice for New Mexico. Plenty of time to get our minds in a good place, get used to what they do, practice at full speed. You know, today you really can't do that as much. And that's what's different about being in the tournament and not being in conference play. In conference play, we all kind of know each other so well that when you get to the end of the season, that's probably not as important. This time of year, it's more challenging, and it is, you know, much more mental than it is physical, because you're not going to be able to get out there and bang with your guys as much as you would like in a normal maybe 2-day prep.
Next two are coming on our right side, starting on the back.
Coach, I apologize for bringing up bad memories, but back in 2003, you were on the wrong end of a buzzer beater in March with UNC Wilmington.
Yes.
Just curious, what impact does that have on you as a coach, you know, over the course of your career? And is it something when you get this time of year, this setting, that you think about at all?
It's crazy. So I just walked into our locker room, and one of my former assistants from UNC Wilmington was on the Longwood staff. And he left a quote on our bulletin board in there, and it said, I gotta remember it. I think it's a jungle out there. You better know Tarzan. And the quote is from a guy that I coached by the name of Brett Blizzard, who was on that team. And we used to joke around a lot about it. He was a terrific player for us at UNC Wilmington, and so we probably used to think that he was Tarzan for us. And that team was terrific. We lost on a last-second shot to Maryland. Hadn't thought about that maybe except for that quote today, so it's probably appropriate that you asked me the question. But that was a painful loss. It was my first year in coaching, and we had a great team at Wilmington, thought we could advance and do well in the tournament, and Drew Nicholas made the 1-foot runner from about 27 feet to beat us.
Right in front.
Thanks for that memory.
Brad, when you face a team that shoots the three as well as Baylor does, how do you avoid being sucked into a three-point shooting game? Is that something you need to avoid, being sucked into that?
You know, I don't know. We can shoot it as well. We just talk about having good balance. We want to have good balance on offense. We want to score in the paint. We want to get free throws, and we want to make some threes. I think some of it depends on how we're being played. You know, some teams trap the post, some teams pack it in, some teams spread it out, some teams pressure, and different styles open up different things. If you're good, you can figure that out and adapt, and we'll have to adapt tomorrow. So it'll be a little bit based on how they play. Certainly trying to defend their three will be part of the game plan.
Coach, you're going to our right on the back.
Hey, Brad. Will Vandervoort, Clemson Insider. Brad, just wanted to ask you, a few weeks ago, I guess you had the comments on the Big 12. Kind of ironic that you're going to play a Big 12 team in the second round.
And it was in no disrespect to the league, but I do think that they figured some things out. It's probably more of a compliment than anything. I think that there are a lot of teams in their league that scheduled in a way that helped their net, and there's different ways to do it. You can schedule really hard games and hopefully try and win those games, or it seems that you can schedule some teams that aren't maybe as good and beat them by a lot and pad your offensive and defensive efficiency numbers. And I wasn't saying anything that hadn't been already put out there, not only by people and other coaches in our league, but some media people had figured it out. And I do think that's a problem. I think that's a problem with the system, and we really need to look at it. This tournament is too important to too many people. And again, I have all the respect in the world for the committee. I mean, our heart was broken last year being left out. And one of the things that we were penalized for, I think, was maybe our non-conference strength of schedule. Now, that's hard, too, because last year at that time I was arguing that your non-conference strength of schedule shouldn't matter as much as just your overall strength of schedule. Whatever your overall strength of schedule is, that's what it is. If you play in a really hard league like the Big 12 or the ACC, you may not want to schedule over your head in November and December. The season's hard enough. But I do think that there are some things that are happening with the numbers that are changing whether teams become quad 2s and quads 3s. And I get it, behind closed doors, maybe they don't view the quad 2, quad 3 as much as everybody on the outside does. But starting in December, January, and February, that's all anybody in media talks about. That was a bad loss because it's quad 3. That was a good win because it's quad 2. And then everybody's killing you about your bad losses, and a team we had a stretch there where we had 5 ACC teams that were quad 3, and they were all between like 75 and 95. So we have 5 teams, and we had 5 home games that were all, and I think we were 4-1. NC State at the time beat us, and they were a quad 3. For a long time, NC State was a quad 3. Right now, they got a chance to be in the Sweet 16. And so I'm not sure that all the numbers are adding up. And obviously, I made that clear in that comment with that interview.
Coach, we're going to go back to the Zoom for Darian.
You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay. The Lobos were kind of a popular upset, picked up, set you guys in the first round, and now most pundits have Baylor beating you guys. Do you guys embrace this underdog role heading into the tournament, into this matchup?
We certainly recognize it. I mean, I don't know that we have this big boulder on our shoulder that, we're using it as a rallying cry. I just think that, I've got an older group, so I think they're more concerned with just being prepared, right, and trying to play great basketball. And we know if we do what we're supposed to do and play well, that good things will happen. I think we've proven that with our, performance in a lot of games this year. But certainly we notice it. You can't turn on the, TV and radio. And I know, somewhere on ESPN we were the first. There were 10 upsets, and we were number 1. It was like we were the guaranteed upset in round 1. So I certainly mentioned it to our players. Our players were well aware, but we didn't plaster it all over everybody's locker and everything like that. Our guys, I think are more mature than that and understand that, playing good basketball and being prepared is going to win.
All right, the next 3 are coming from our right side with the 2 there in a row on the back.
Yeah, Brad, I wanted to ask you, last week I asked you about your guards and how important they play, how well they play. Yesterday, obviously, Chase played well. Does he really drive the ship for you guys and make sure he's in that mode to help kind of get you guys over the top?
Well, I think he certainly is one of the drivers. But I think we have a lot of guys that, in these games, you need multiple guys playing well. One of the things about Baylor that's so impressive, it seems like they have 5 guys, and it might even be 6 guys that average double figures. They're all between 10 and 14 points a game, and it's a little bit, all right, which one are we trying to stop? It's hard. And that's why they're really good, is when you have multiple guys that can have good games. Last night it was Ian Shefflin with 16 and 12, and certainly Chase, and you almost forget about PJ having 14, But our guys all have roles. I think when we're playing our best, everybody's contributing well. And it takes that to beat the quality of opponent that you're going to face at this time of the year.
Staying on the back row, go ahead.
The defensive effort you guys put out there yesterday, does that carry over? Does that help with some confidence playing against a team as offensively talented as Baylor is, and maybe even going way back to, what you guys did at Alabama, what you guys did at North Carolina when you're playing those teams that like to get up and down the floor?
I don't know. I mean, it's good for us to have those positive thoughts. It's good that, we've had some recent practices where we've been successful and been able to practice and continue to build good habits. But Baylor's a different animal. They present some unique problems because of their shooting and so many of their guys that can shoot, and the athleticism of their center. I mean, that guy can You throw it anywhere near the basket, he's dunking it. I mean, he gets behind you, his athleticism, his speed. He's a much better high post driver than you would think. Some of that's because there's so much space because of the shooting all over the floor. But it's certainly better to be playing him after a game where you have a lot of positive thoughts than it is not playing well on that end of the floor and then trying to deal with it.
All right, we're inside our last 5 minutes. We're on our far right, but we're switching mics.
Coach, you mentioned Baylor's center. How important is it for your bigs to stay out of foul trouble, especially PJ?
Yeah, it is important. You know, he's had a few games this year where that's been a problem, and we're obviously better when he's out there. And you know, he's got to be a little bit more disciplined defensively. We talk all the time that when you're a guy playing the center position at this level, everybody probably starts the game with 2 fouls. If you don't get 2 fouls, you're probably not playing very hard. Protecting your basket, rebounding, whatever it is, and then there's going to be some other things that can happen to cause you to foul. So it's the silly fouls, it's the illegal screens, it's the slaps, it's things that you can control, staying down and not walling up, leaving your feet. That he's got to be a little bit more disciplined on sometimes.
We're going to go one more in the room on the back, and we'll close it out on the Zoom.
When you've got a veteran guy like Chase coming off of a game like he had against Boston College, and you got 9 days between games, do you as coaches notice that he's taking it as hard as he's taking it? As he was saying that yesterday, that he took it really, really hard. And do you have to do anything differently to try to maybe instill that confidence back in him? Or, how do you guys handle that when you see it?
Yeah, you do. And he and I met and talked briefly and just talked about things that happen when he's playing well and, giving him reasons to believe, right, that was more of an accident than anything else. And then sometimes when you've had some poor performances, here are some things that seem to be sticking out in those poor performances. And then here are things that stick out when you play well. And, you're not going to be able to account for shot making and things of that nature, but maybe some other things you can. And so we met and talked about a lot of things and just, tried to reassure him a little bit. And a guy with his ability is a confident guy, and so we were, believed that he would play well in this tournament.
All right, from Zoom, Dan, you have the last word.
Dan Tortora, wakeupcalldt.com. Coach, I spoke with you earlier this season about Gerard III and why you brought him in. Now that you've had an entire regular season and now in the postseason with him, just what he's meant to this team on and off the court, and just hindsight 2020, that decision to bring him in, what that's meant for you.
Yeah, it's been huge. I mean, he's a terrific player, terrific young man. He's been a joy to coach. I think we delivered on our end in terms of what we thought he could do for us, and he certainly has delivered to us in terms of productivity and confidence and experience and swagger and leadership, and it's just been a really good fit, and I think he's been comfortable with our players. Our players have done an unbelievable job. PJ and Chase, especially, two veteran guys that had open arms with him and brought him in and really made him feel welcome and feel like he's a part of our program. I think he's really enjoyed his time at Clemson, maybe even more than he thought, and not just the basketball, but just living in Clemson, being a part of our community, our school, the school spirit that comes with it, just enjoying life, in the South a little bit. I think it's been really good for him, and he certainly has fit, our culture extremely well, and I think we've done a good job of helping him in basketball and a couple things that maybe he didn't get a chance to do at Syracuse.
Coach, thank you for your time.
Okay.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody.
We're scheduled to be joined